Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us in our 16th episode of How Well Are You, the talk show. I tell you, we are rolling right along here. We are committed to dismantling the stigma associated with mental illness, as I always say, one episode at a time. Now, our topic this evening is centered around bipolar disorder 1. I'm Cynthia Mobley Howell, your host and the driving force behind How Well Are You? As the founder and CEO, I'm dedicated to guiding you on a transformative journey towards achieving your optimal well being in every dimension that is, spiritually, mentally, and physically. Our mission is to empower you, ensuring that you emerge as the best version of yourself. How Well Are You? The talk show places a special focus on the topic of mental well being. Thank you so much for joining us each week as we explore all aspects of mental health. And I always say, here we fearlessly tackle every topic. We leave no stone unturned. This evening's captivating episode of our talk show shines a spotlight on an often misunderstood and stigmatized mental health condition, bipolar disorder 1. We're going to be diving into the complexities of this disorder, unraveling its impact on individuals and their loved ones. You see, through these types of insightful discussions and some personal stories that you may even hear this evening, we aim to break down barriers, foster understanding, and offer hope to those affected by bipolar disorder. So get ready for an enlightening conversation that's going to challenge preconceptions and ignite empathy. And if you're catching the replay, feel free and leave a comment with the hashtag replay. Know that your presence is valued even if you're tuning in after the live session. I'm just loving this journey that we're on together, encouraging others to understand and have compassion for those who are navigating the complexities of mental well being. So go ahead, hit that share button because we want everyone to know we are here right now. Your love and support means so much to us, and we want to hear from you. And don't hesitate to express your thoughts in the comments section. We want to hear what you're thinking. Today, we have the privilege of welcoming a truly remarkable guest who will generously share her personal journey with bipolar disorder 1, including some other valuable information. We're going to be listening to her lived experiences, gaining insight into the challenges, triumphs, and resilience that come with navigating this complex condition. So be prepared to be inspired as we delve into her story, shedding light on the realities of living with bipolar disorder 1. This enlightening conversation, I already know it's going to leave a lasting impact. Our special guest is ready to bravely open up and share her experiences with bipolar disorder 1. So go ahead, tag someone, click the share button because we want others to reap the benefits of the valuable insights we're about to uncover together. Let's spread the knowledge and make a positive impact on more lives. So with great pleasure, allow me to introduce our remarkable guest. Melissa Ruschetti is an accomplished critical care nurse, and she holds a master's degree in nursing education. With 9 years of experience as an intensive care unit nurse, Melissa has also previously taken up the role as an educator, teaching both LPN and bachelor's nursing students at various esteemed nursing schools. Her unwavering dedication to mental health has driven her to pursue a second master's degree, specializing in becoming a psychiatric slash mental health nurse practitioner. I am so proud of Melissa. Having personally battled bipolar 1 disorder since her youth, Melissa possesses a profound understanding of the challenges individuals face in dealing with this condition. Eager to dispel the stigma and misconceptions surrounding mental health, Melissa has devoted her life to acquiring expertise in psychiatric care. Melissa's ultimate goal is to empower the public through education and support while also filling the crucial gap for accessible mental health practitioners. Residing in the vibrant city of Claremont, Florida, yay, Claremont! Melissa finds comfort and inspiration in her role, yes, as a mother to her two beautiful children. Her personal experiences, coupled with her professional journey, makes her a compassionate and dedicated advocate for mental health awareness. So, everybody, let's extend a very warm welcome to Melissa Ruschetti. Go ahead and put some clap emojis in the chat. Hey, Melissa.
Hi, Cynthia. Thank you so much for having me on the show today and our journey to end the stigma of mental health disorders and how they are perceived in our society. One show at a time for you, and I'm making it my life's passion.
I love it. I absolutely love it. You know, we have had, I'm getting emotional already. And anybody that knows me know that I will get emotional. And I don't care.
You.
This is my show and I can do what I want to do. I'm already getting emotional because as I think about the conversations that you and I have had about mental health awareness and about both of our experiences, your lived experience, my experience being raised in a household where all of my siblings, I'm the youngest, I'm the only girl of four, and all of my siblings were affected by severe mental illness. My oldest brother died by suicide and he was bipolar. Back then they called it manic depression, but he was bipolar. So this is a very, very sensitive topic. Mental illness is a sensitive topic, period. And it's only sensitive because we don't normalize it as we do any other illnesses. You know, we talk about cancer, we talk about leukemia, we talk about diabetes, we talk about all of these physical illnesses. And so we talk about those all the time and we normalize those conversations. But when it comes to mental illness, we have to do better about normalizing the conversation because a mental illness is a disease. It just happens to be a disease of the mind. So, Melissa, let me just start off by asking you to define actually what bipolar disorder 1 is to help our audience understand where we're going here. Once you define it, then you just go ahead and just tell us what it is you want to tell us.
Well, there's a very holistic approach to understanding what bipolar is. And when I mean holistic, I mean there's many parts involved. Bipolar is a brain disorder in which a person's mood, energy, and ability to function is disrupted. People with bipolar can experience intense emotional states that typically occur during distinct periods of days to weeks. These moods are termed either manic or hypomanic. During a mood episode, a person can be either abnormally happy or irritated. Or on the other hand, the person can be afflicted with depression. So there's either excitement or extreme irritability, or on the other hand, depression. There are three types of bipolar. There's bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and cyclothymic disorder. I'm going to focus more on bipolars 1 and 2 today. Cyclothymic disorder runs in the family. It's not as much as a cause for concern as bipolars 1 and 2. But as we know, bipolar has a very large stigma attached to it. I want to tell you a funny story. I was a nurse at a hospital on the south side of Chicago, and I was taking care of a patient who happened to be bipolar. And I was in there speaking with the patient. We were having a conversation. The doctor comes into me and he says, "Oh, don't worry about her, or don't mind her. She's bipolar." So, in my feeling confidence about ending the stigma of mental health problems, I said to the doctor, "Doctor, I'm bipolar too. Is there a problem?" How about that?
How about that?
How
How
about
about
that?
boom?
Boom, right at you, doctor. He didn't have much to say after that. But the truth of it is, and I feel like a lot of people that say, "Oh, that person's bipolar," and there's no diagnosis, really need to get educated on it. Really need to get educated on what the disorder is. So, what happens in the brain is, there's a lot of potential etiology behind bipolar. And etiology is the causing factors of a disease. Now, they're saying that genetics play a big role in it. I've read that 80 to 90% of people that have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder have a relative that have bipolar disorder or some other kind of psychiatric illness, but bipolar being one of the most prevalent. And also they're saying that along with brain chemistry, which I will go into, there is a really kind of there's natures versus nurture, correct? I mean, we've all heard that before, nature versus nurture. Now, nature can cause genetics to happen. They're even saying that as they do study in bipolar, they're saying that there is a kind of an issue maybe with chromosome 11, and that they see people with bipolar. The research is being done. It's slow, but it's being done because it's hard to learn about the brain. But there could be an issue with chromosome 11. But when I talk about things, I like things to make sense, and neurological stuff and brain stuff and mental health stuff doesn't always make sense all the time. So I'm going to talk about what makes sense to me. Okay. Because that's what kind of person that I am. So there are three neurotransmitters in the brain that control emotion. There's norepinephrine, there's serotonin, and there's dopamine. Okay. So they're finding that in people with depression, that I'm sure most of you have heard what an SSRI is, like a Prozac, a Zoloft, an antidepressant. There's things called SSNIs too. So SSRI is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And SSNI is a serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. What reuptake means is that our brains are secreting the happy juices, norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, but the cells are reabsorbing the happy juices. That's what I call them, the happy juices, the neurotransmitters, okay? The cell is reabsorbing them, so they're not available for use. So what these medications do is they make it so that the cell cannot reabsorb the happy neurotransmitters, so that they're available in the brain for happiness, for energy, for emotional well-being. Not necessarily being happy, but being neutral in behavior and in mind. Okay. So, what happens in bipolar disorder, and I'm talking bipolars type 1 and 2, which I will go into shortly, is that sometimes these cells reabsorb these neurotransmitters, causing depression. At other times, these cells secrete these hormones, causing too much of the neurotransmitters in the brain, causing something called mania. So it's almost like it's literally what you've heard in the past. It's called a chemical imbalance. Okay. So and bipolar 1 is categorized as mostly mania rather than depression. Now, interestingly enough, it takes about 6 to 10 years for a psychiatrist to diagnose somebody with bipolar disease, because it takes a long time to understand what's going on, especially if you're only seeing a psychiatrist maybe once a month. Usually it's when somebody's in an inpatient setting where there's a more intimate setting. You're seeing the psychiatrist on a daily basis. You're working with a therapy team. They're like, that's what it is. Okay. So most people will go to a psychiatrist with symptoms of depression, right? Because depression sucks. Depression hurts. So they'll go to the doctor, and the doctor's not automatically going to ask them questions about mania. Okay, those situations may come up later where the doctor says, "Oh, the puzzle is coming together on this person's diagnosis." So bipolar is a very hard diagnosis for a physician to make. You don't just visit a doctor one time, they're like, "Oh, you're bipolar." No, it's after years. So what does that mean? It means that that person's not getting medicated appropriately for that amount of time. And that's the roller coaster that I've gone through in my life.
Let
With
let me let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. There's when you say that that's the roller coaster that you've gone through in your life, and what you said prior to that, I love the way you're breaking that down, because maybe it's just me because I'm a mental health advocate and I've done a lot of research, and maybe it's not just me, but I think that you have certainly broken this down so that a layperson can really, really understand bipolar. So thank you so much for that. And then when you talk about bipolar 1 and 2, just give me a quick answer on this, because I want to ask you something else. Bipolar 1 meaning more or less, or bipolar 2, or just something totally different when you talk about bipolar 1 and 2?
So to the layperson, this can seem pretty kind of mind-boggling, and to the practitioner in mental health, there is a defining factor between the two. So bipolar 1 is usually a person that's more manic. So those neurotransmitters they're super secreted in the brain, and the person's experiencing racing thoughts, having extreme energy, feeling like they're God, feeling like they're the best thing since sliced bread, or on the other or on the other hand, being extremely irritable. Okay, anxiety is also a mental disorder that goes hand in hand with bipolar, and that irritability is caused by anxiety. Now, bipolar 2 is more of your depression and something called hypomania. Now, hypomania is a more subdued form of mania, which can be treated differently than somebody with bipolar 1. Now, there will be, like I said, there will be more of a depressive side to this person. The bipolar 1 patient is more in a longer state of mania. So that person will, there are times where people with bipolar 1 can experience psychotic breaks where they have hallucinations, delusions, dissociations from reality. Um, and it's usually caused by the extreme anxiety that person's facing. The anxiety is caused from the increase in those neurotransmitters. The body doesn't know what to do with all of this energy. The
Got it.
body and the emotions don't know what to do with all this extra energy.
Got
And understandable. Does that make a
Yeah,
little sense?
yeah, I got you. So when you mentioned, your roller coaster ride, what I want to ask you is, Melissa, when was it first discovered that you were affected uh, by or with bipolar? And I heard you say, which is very interesting, which I did not know, that it's not something that somebody can see you one time, or a psychiatrist, or whomever can see you one time and say, oh, you're bipolar, but it's bipolar, but it's something that has to be it's a behavior that has to have been observed over a period of time before that diagnosis, if you will, um, before you can be diagnosed or before it can be discovered. So when was it that it was first discovered that you were affected, and what were some of the signs and symptoms to indicate that you were bipolar?
Well, I'll tell you this. So when I was a little girl, now I do want to also kind of back up real quick, and then I'll
Sure,
push forward again.
sure.
Um, so they are saying, I talked about etiology, the causative factors of bipolar, and I'm talking about neurotransmitters and all the science and geeky stuff that I love. But then on the other hand, there's also a strong association with bipolar and environmental factors like abuse growing up, being put in situations that a child shouldn't be in, or like I said, constant abuse. Now, I grew up with a very emotionally abusive father who was also seemed to have a lot of those symptoms of bipolar, but he didn't believe in mental health. So he was kind of old school. When my mom said I had a mental health problem, he's just, nah, she doesn't. She's just spoiled. She's just spoiled. So, but with that being said, when I was young, I started like maybe 8 years old. Now, mind you, and this, for the faint of heart, and I think we go out of that boundary on this show, as I've heard your shows. I would see my father beat my mother and throw her against the wall. I thought she was dead a couple times. I would get in trouble for if I was in my bedroom and my closet door was open, I'd get thrown across the wall and told I was a loser. So, you know what though, Cynthia, this happens in a lot of households. I do look at other households. I'm like, oh God, that family looks so nice. I wish I was part of it. But unfortunately, this it's not just me. It's not just me. But with this kind of like soup of things going on, of neurotransmitters and abuse and all that thing, it's the perfect concoction for somebody developing bipolar disease. So like I said, it's holistic. It's not just science, but it's also, behavior patterns that have happened over the years. So going back to where I think it started, now people with bipolar disorder do have a terrible memory. And I've done research on that. I'm like, why do I have such a bad memory about things? Maybe it's repression. I'm not sure. But I do remember about being between 8 and 10 years old. I didn't want to live anymore. I hated life. And I had a little stuffed cat that had a zipper on it that had like a speaker in there, but I took the speaker out and I would go around the house and try to find all the pills. I didn't know what medicine was, but I would take but I must have saw in a movie or something if you take a lot of pills, you can die. So I did that. I would collect all these pills. I took all these pills and I didn't die. That sounds terrible. But I was always picked on as a child. I always had very low self-confidence. My mom used to like to tell me too that was my fault. But I'm not sure. I'm not putting blame on anybody. I had a really tough childhood. Now, when I became 18 and left for college for the first time, now a lot of people come really afflicted with symptoms of depression, any kind of mental health disorder when they grow into a young adult, which is about 18. And a lot of kids that go off to college are not in their cocoon anymore. And this is the time that a lot of mental illness comes about. Now, in college, I went through a lot of depression, but after college, I do remember, being about 22 years old and feeling just so terrible all the time, just full of rage and anxiety. I would beat my head against the wall. I would beat my head against the wall to calm the pain. And I was, and I'll tell you one thing, when you're beating your head against a wall and you're manic, you're not thinking about what's going on. So during a lot of my manic episodes in life, I have decided to swallow bottles of pills and become hospitalized, inpatient. And that's how my bipolar was ultimately diagnosed.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
I
That's
have
incredible.
gone out. I went one day and bought a $1,500 dog on credit. I've bought purses.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, hey, Deborah is saying in the comments, and it segues right into what I believe she's asking you to please address the impulsivity
component. Yep.
of bipolar 1. Sounds like that's where you're going.
That's where I'm going. So Deborah, thank you for that. So the impulsivity, like I said, is caused by these neurotransmitters. They're just really being secreted in the brain. The serotonin, the norepinephrine, the dopamine. Those are the chemicals that are being brought about. So it's causing just like behavior that's very intense. There's depression, which is where these neurotransmitters are kind of dampened. They're not there. There's neutral, where everything's doing what it should do, exactly what we all strive for in this world. And there's that extra. So mania is that extra, okay? And it's causing just such an anxiety. Like you need to do something impulsive to stop all of this anxiety. That's how I feel so I feel that if I go and buy a $1,500 dog, I'm going to feel better. I'm not thinking what I'm doing. I know it's wrong, but my emotions are controlling my actions. And I'll go into more of that when I talk about cognitive behavioral therapy. But but yeah, impulsivity is it's horrible. It's, you don't know you're doing it. You think, you may or may not know that you're doing the right thing. A lot of people will go out and have sexual escapades, spending sprees, gambling sprees, things that don't really make sense or are risky to the society or to anybody in general. I mean, if you go out and have sexual escapades, what you have the risk for getting diseases, getting an unwanted pregnancy. If you go out gambling or go on shopping sprees, you have the risk of ruining your family's income. You might not be able to pay your rent that month or pay groceries for you and your children or whomever you're taking care of. So impulsivity is like, if you do these things, it is associated with risks. I hope that helped Deborah understand what I was kind of going for with that.
Wow. So what? So then, as we, believe it or not, reach the halfway point, I cannot believe
This
we're
is fun.
already like, this is so good. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, what's the difference between a quote unquote normal person, quote unquote, going out and impulsively buying a $1,500 dog or $5,000 uh, designer handbag, that, and a person who's bipolar? Like, what? How do you know the difference?
Well, because you're not thinking about it when you're doing it. At least from my perspective, I just went out and did things. I didn't think about them. It was impulsive, as the word states. Your impulsivity kind of it goes with the definition of it. It's doing something without thinking about it.
Okay,
Now, somebody who's kind of like in a neutral mood state will say, "Yeah, I'm going to buy a $1,500 purse. Yeah, it's really expensive, but it's beautiful, and I've saved up for it, and I'm going to wear it to this party, and what I'm saying." Or buying a $1,500 dog. Well, um, maybe the family has decided to go buy the dog. I bought it on the way home from work one day.
got you, got you,
Okay. It does not make sense. It's impulsive.
got you.
Right. And it's risky, and it can cause problems. Now, a lot of people with bipolar 1, now I'm saying that's more focused on the mania aspect of bipolar, is that a lot of relationships are affected, a lot of jobs. They do consider bipolar 1 disorder a disability. Now, now when I do fill out paperwork, and we'll talk about a little bit of stigma here, when I do fill out paperwork for jobs, it says you're covered by the Americans with Disability Act. Are you any one of these things? And bipolar disorder comes up, and I say no. When am I going to finally say yes?
So wait a minute, back up. So you said it actually flat out ask you, under the being covered under the whatever disability act, whatever that is. Did you say that it flat out ask you, are you uh bipolar? Is that what I heard you say, or not? No.
It's the Americans with Disability Act. It's basically it's non-punitive. You don't get in trouble for it.
Mhm.
Um, but it's they have to, companies need to make accommodations for employees with disabilities. Okay, and then they give you a long list of disabilities. They have seizure disorder. They've got oh goodness gracious, ALS, or any kind of disorders that you would deem a disorder because it's physical. Well, they also have a lot of mental afflictions on there as well. Schizophrenia and bipolar. The bipolar is considered a disability. My doctor has said to me, "Melissa, you have a disability. Do you want to go on disability?" I said, "Heck no, I'm going to beat this."
All right, all right, all right. And you know what? And I'm glad to hear you say that. And this is a good time for us to take a break. Wow, this has been so good, Melissa. You have shared some golden nuggets, and I can't wait to go back and watch the replay. And I know that our listening audience has also gleaned a lot from this. Deborah says it impacts the ability to perform. If the laws are
So if
absent,
the lows are abysmal, you can't get to work on time. Yeah.
yeah, perpetual lateness can cause you to lose your job. So I can see how it could be a catch-22 situation, because it could work in your favor, but at the same time, like you said, it's not that you're necessarily ashamed, and then there is the stigma, but you're like trying to come out of this. So that if you ever need to use it, you can definitely use it to your advantage. But I want to stop right here, and we're going to take a short break. This is so good, and when we come back, we're going we're going to delve right back into this whole topic of bipolar disorder, navigating this roller coaster with the amazing Melissa Ruschetti. So hang tight, audience. Don't go anywhere. Take your quick drink of water because we're going to be back before you can blink your eyes. We will see you. Hey, everybody. We are back with the amazing Melissa Ruschetti. I hate saying your last name because I almost feel like I said like I'm cussing or I can't get it out right. But
it's Rossetti. Everybody butchers it. It's okay.
Rossetti. Gotcha. So we are back with the amazing Melissa Rossetti, and we're talking about bipolar disorder 1 and 2 and navigating that roller coaster. Melissa told us earlier in the show in the first half that bipolar 1, you tend to be more manic, think you're kind of, for the way that I put it, you're kind of bouncing off the wall, things are, you're hot, you're a live wire, but then
hot mess.
A hot mess, she said.
Mess.
And then bipolar 2, you're more hypomania, you're down, you're depressed, you're more subdued. And Melissa has given us a lot of facts with regard to this mental illness that has been a stigma within the stigma, if you will, because as we were ending, she was talking about that whole act, and you can repeat it again because I can't remember that whole whatever that act is, and where you're filling out your application or whatever, and then it lists if you're affected by any of these illnesses, and bipolar is listed as one of them. And she hasn't at this point stepped up and said, yeah, I am, because her hope is that she's going to beat it and she won't have to worry about that again. So we're back now, and we just want to pick up where we left off. So Melissa, welcome back, and just keep pushing. Absolutely. Thank you so much, because you're bringing this is some great information, and I am totally getting a lot out of this. As I said, I cannot wait to go back and watch the replay. But carry on, sis.
I'll tell you one thing, girl, I ain't disabled.
I know that's right. I know
you ain't gonna break me.
I heard that. I'm right with you. And that's the thing about it. And let me say this real quick before you keep going. And somebody may or may not agree with me. And you and I have already had this conversation. You and I have had many conversations, but this is one of the conversations that we had recently when I talked about how I don't know if people with a mental illness, as with a physical illness, are encouraged, or they just decide they want to say my diabetes or my high blood pressure or my high cholesterol or my bipolar disorder, I say stop owning it. The Bible tells us, and y'all know I'm a minister, so we're going to have a little bit of word up in here every time we come on here. The
Please
Bible
do.
says
Preach.
that death and life is in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. So I say stop owning stuff, because the more you say my bipolar, you're owning it. And
Right.
the more bipolar you're going to be. And I know somebody's like, oh, you just taking it too far. No, I'm not. I believe what the word of God says. I've been living by the word of God for 40 plus years, and I know what I'm talking about. So I would encourage you today, if you are that person that owns your illnesses, it ain't my schizophrenia, it ain't my bipolar, it's not my anxiety, it's not my depression. Stop owning it. Can we start there? All right, I'm off my soapbox now. Keep
Okay.
going.
Well, on the other hand, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, Cynthia.
Okay, you know how we
I,
go.
I understand where you're coming from, where you say, owning it. But I think with any disorder, any disease, you gotta own it so that you can take care of it. Now, we don't have to go out there saying, "Oh, well, I'm Melissa Rossetti and I'm bipolar." I ain't gonna do that. But what I'm saying is that we're all snowflakes. God made us in His image, in the He made us all different, and differences and diversity is what makes us a community of people now, and we can all learn from each other. But as far as owning it is concerned, I own my bipolar. I own it so I can take care of myself. And I think that we're speaking as in owning it as two different things, Cynthia.
We
Not
are. We are, because I'm not saying that.
owning
I'm
it playing
not
the
saying,
victim or something.
yeah. For instance, one day, this was many years ago, and I I had laryngitis, and I couldn't talk barely, and I had to go to
Your
church.
laryngitis. I'm joking.
Yeah, I did. I had to
Your
sing.
laryngitis.
Say it again.
I said your laryngitis. I was just
No, no,
I
no,
was just
no.
messing you
I
up.
had laryngitis. No, here's my point. I had listen to what I'm saying. I had laryngitis. I clearly could not talk. You couldn't hear me talk. And when I got to church, in church we have this thing that says don't claim stuff. And I got up and I said, they say don't claim stuff. I said, I ain't claiming it, I'm naming it, and it's called laryngitis. So to your point about
Right.
what you were saying, yeah, you own it in the sense that you're not in denial, but I still say, and this is my story and I'm sticking to it. I still say you don't need to be saying my bipolar, because it ain't your bipolar. You can say bipolar without having to say my bipolar. Why do you have to say my?
No, and you don't. Here, I want to really quickly address Liz Watson
Hey,
here,
Liz Watson. Okay, go ahead.
where she says it's a disease, not a death sentence, unless you allow it. I completely agree with that. I ain't gonna diseases are manageable. Death sentences are death sentences. And
Come on, girl.
I do want to say though, is that, the people with bipolar do have higher rates of premature death. Now I'm talking
And
about
why is
people
that?
with suicide risk. Mania can bring on suicidal tendencies very, very easily because you're so torn up in your head. You don't know what you're doing. You literally do not know what you're doing in a manic episode most of the times. And it's very easy to take that plunge down the wrong road. And it's also very easy to get involved in alcohol and drugs. I'm a critical care nurse. I know what alcohol and drugs can do to the body from a very personal standpoint.
Let me stop you right there for a second. You said something that I need to point out. For those people who have their preconceptions or misconceptions about people with bipolar disorder. What did I just hear you say? You're a what? What's your profession?
I'm a critical care nurse.
And how long have you been a critical care nurse?
9 years.
Okay, I rest my case. Keep going. I'm
But
just saying.
also people with bipolar disorder that isn't that isn't diagnosed or not taken care of, they have the tendency to have weight fluctuations. There's a lot of medications also that cause weight gain, antipsychotics that cause weight gain, and so these people can be more afflicted by comorbid diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, high lipids, which can cause heart attacks, stroke, those types of diseases. So, and like I said, it's all about owning it and taking care of it. Now, whenever you're ready, I'd love to talk a little bit before time is up about some of the treatments available for bipolar disorder.
Absolutely, and I'm ready. But before you do that, can you address Deborah? I don't know what that is about. Maybe you do, but I'm not sure. Are you familiar with?
I'm not sure what Title 504 is, Deborah. I'm sorry. Is there a child with a learning disorder that is bipolar? If a child has the 504 accommodation for learning but doesn't use it, they don't benefit for extra time or quiet time. That sounds something a little bit more like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, Deborah. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Or because usually children aren't diagnosed as bipolar. Oh, okay. Deborah, you're absolutely right. So she wrote, similarly, if someone is in denial, they won't seek treatment and the symptoms will continue. Absolutely. And that's a whole big thing, too, is that there are people that do not believe that there are problems with mental health, or maybe there's such a stigma attached to it, or they can't believe that would actually happen to them. So, those are the types of people that could be in denial about something and not go seek medication. Liz, I'm sorry. In class education, I guess I'm so sorry. I'm still not understanding what the question is.
It's okay. It's okay. So you can go ahead and delve into what you wanted to delve into, and we will. I'm sure they will bring some clarification to what they're saying. But go right ahead and delve into what
Okay.
you're about to delve into, Melissa.
Well, I'm not really going to go into the psychopharmacotherapy, which is just psych meds. I'm not going to delve into that too much. There are medications such as lithium, Depakote. Those are called mood stabilizers. What they do is they kind of put those neurotransmitters into tame in the brain. Unfortunately, as far as the mechanics of the medication goes, I am not super well versed on those. I will be taking a class on those though, but I do know them just from using them. So I've been on a lot of different medications. There's also medications that are normally used for seizures that are used to treat bipolar disorder as well. So like off-label uses. But I do really, and then also people that have issues with bipolar that's kind of refractory, meaning that it's not taken care of very well with medication, they can do something called electroconvulsive therapy. And I'm sure we've all heard of that before, and kind of like the medieval archaic thoughts of what electroconvulsive therapy is. But really what electroconvulsive therapy is a therapy that delivers several rounds of brief electrical currents to the scalp while the patient is under anesthesia. So anesthesia is basically you're given medication to make you fall asleep, like general surgery. The electrical current leads to a short, brief seizure. So it's inducing a seizure. And this seizure is thought to remodel the brain's signaling pathways. So controlling those neurotransmitters that I discussed. So pretty cool. But I really want to talk about cognitive behavioral therapy today. Now, every plan is individualized. My whole thing with my patients, everything, we are all snowflakes. Nobody is created equal, especially with mental health disorders. Now, with heart disorders, I mean, they're pretty straightforward. But with mental health disorders, everybody's an individual. I may have this symptom, this person doesn't have this symptom, this person does. It's not clear cut. So treatment plans are very individualized to the patient. Now, what is the most important thing? It's a two-part thing, is that the patient should be seeing a psychiatrist along with a psychotherapist or just a therapist. I actually use Talkspace. It's my insurance covers it, and I've got a counselor or a therapist that I talk to weekly, but we also text every day. It's actually really great. But what I've learned before in the past, being inpatient hospitalized, and what I've lost touch with it, but it's like riding a bike. You can get right back on it, is something called cognitive behavioral therapy. And I'm just going to tell you guys really quickly what that is and make perfect sense of it. So we've got a triangle here. Okay. Up here at the top is thoughts. We're going to look over here, and this is emotion. On this side is action. Okay. Everybody has thoughts. Okay. Thoughts trigger emotions. Emotions trigger actions. Okay. So people with bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, a whole array of different kind of mental health disorders have a problem with taking their thoughts, automatically creating a pretty big emotion with it, and then acting. So for example, I'll take a thought that somebody doesn't like me, just whatever. And I will start crying about it. And then I'll get pissed about it. And I'll go to that person, why don't you like me? And it'll be totally uncalled for, because the person's like, maybe like, I don't even know you, just, but I mean, did that kind of make sense a little bit? So what the whole thing is that, along with medication therapy, is that you've got to take that thought and that emotion, kind of break the chain between the thought and the emotion, turn the thought into a better emotion than something negative. So what I'm saying is, you have the cognition or the ability to think differently. It's training your brain to think differently. And it is so important. I have to sometimes sit down with myself every day. If I'm upset, I just recently went through a terrible breakup. And I have to think to myself, okay, well, here's this thought in my head. What am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with this thought? A lot of times I cry, but you know what? A lot of times I say to myself, Melissa, you know better. My logical side of my brain is telling me that, I don't need to cry, and I don't need to act on my emotions. So basically what I'm saying is, it's training your brain to not, cry over something, or worse, cry over something and do something about it that might cause disruption in a relationship, in a job. Okay. Or just, for another example, in this cognitive behavioral therapy, I have a thought at work that I can't even think of anything. Something's going on. And then I start crying about it, or I get angry about it. And then I do something that I am not proud of at work, and I get fired. Right. So those are the problems that a lot of bipolar people deal with, is that they act too much on their emotions. So it's really retraining your brain to take a step back and not act out on those emotions. Like, for example, I have a thought, oh, I'm by a pet store. Oh, I really want a dog. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to go buy this $1,500 dog. I'll pay it off. And then you go home with the dog, and everybody's terribly mad at you. Make sense?
It does make sense.
Acting on those emotions and those thoughts. So it takes a lot of work, but it's absolutely worth it. I'm working on it again right now. I've had a very, very troublesome year this year. I went through a divorce. My father died. I lost a job. It's like a country song. But stressors like this. So my bipolar has been pretty tame for years. And then this year came about, and all these things happen. And I've really I've struggled, and I've had to work very hard on my bipolar. making sure that my medications are in check, making sure that I'm back in therapy every week, making sure that I get my butt to church because the word of God is so important. And if you
By
have a
the way,
good,
I didn't see you at church Sunday, but anyway, another talk show. Um,
don't worry, I'll be there this Sunday. Stop.
so let me, and I think you may have mentioned one or two as we are reaching the end uh, of the show. Can you share some practical coping mechanisms or some self-care practices that you found beneficial in managing the highs and lows of bipolar disorder 1 on a day-to-day basis? One of them I already know because I've seen you post on your social media page that you like going to the beach. So I know that's one. What are some of the other ways that you practice self-care, and what are some practical coping mechanisms that you use to manage the highs and lows of bipolar disorder?
So right, if I want to stay in neutral zone, and exactly, if you've got something that really just gets you feeling good, you need to do it. Like mine is the sound of the ocean, the sparkling sun on the water. That there's something about it that just it takes me away, and it takes me away from my emotions. It doesn't make me act on anything. But I also cook. I do anything that makes me kind of neutral. I do crafts at home because I ain't thinking. Maybe something that you're not really thinking too much about. If you're really struggling that day, even going and taking a walk up a hill. I've got a huge hill by my house, and I'm thinking about sweating. I'm thinking about how bad my legs hurt. I ain't thinking about, you know, this, that, or the other thing. But
Like
that's
how
also
you feeling up in here right now?
how I'm feeling up in there. So you
Right.
have to be very cognizant to know, you have to be very aware of what's going on. And that takes time and talent to be very aware of your bipolar, but knowing that you're in mania, depression, but you need to go ahead and be very active, not lazy. And because I can get lazy, I can get very lazy. I can sit in my bed and cry, or I can do something stupid. But I say, Melissa, you're going up and getting for a walk. Melissa, you're getting your car, you're going to the beach today. Melissa, you're going to the store and you're making chicken pot pie because there's about 10,000 different steps in that recipe, and it's going to be amazing, but it's a lot of hard work. So you don't have to think about it. I turn on music that I really like. People can take a bubble bath, a shower, whatever a person does that makes them feel better to get them in that neutral mindset is
West
where.
Coast Sands said, excuse me, I just wanted to get this in. West Coast Sands said, writing really helps me work through the emotions and make sense of my thoughts. Bipolar 1 also. Thank you so much, West Coast Sands, for that. Thank you.
And West Coast Sands, I really appreciate that because I haven't done this yet, and I should more, or I just should in general, is that, journaling is so important because it really gauges your mood states, and it does actually help a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist understand who you are, is journaling. So that's excellent. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
I love that as well. And I have, as of today, I've been journaling for 63 days. I have never been a journaler. And that's one of the things in this new season in my life that I've been committed to doing. And I have literally been, except for maybe like a couple of Sundays, those are the only days that I may not have journaled. But, and that's probably been about 3, but 63 days. So as we reach the end of this engaging conversation, we want to thank you all for joining us tonight, and we look forward to connecting with you again in our next episode. But before we wrap up, Melissa, could you please share some parting words of wisdom and encouragement with our viewers? And if you have any services or products that you currently provide, if you don't, that's fine. Additionally, and I have been putting your email address on the screen, but you can also as well let the audience know the best way to get in touch with you. But right now, we want you to share some parting words of wisdom and encouragement with our audience.
Perfect. So, living with bipolar is one of the most difficult things a person can go through. The unfair stigma attached to this disease is something that needs to be halted for good. The severe stresses of riding an emotional roller coaster every day is so impactful on the lives and on the life and the lives of all of those around a person with bipolar. Um, living with bipolar is the most difficult thing in my life. And it is up to me to keep myself well with psychiatry and psychotherapy and surrounding myself with loving people and church. So, also, people with bipolar are not destined for miserable lives. In fact, people with bipolar disorder can have very productive and fulfilling lives, but it just takes work. I am excited to start my psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner here in October. I do plan on doing taking care of people with bipolar. I want that to be kind of my specialty. I think Florida especially needs a lot of practitioners to help with mental health. The stigma of mental health and the kind of coming out of people with mental health since COVID is great, but the practitioners, there's a supply and a demand problem. There's not enough supply and there's a ton of demand for practitioners. I want to be another available practitioner. But I plan on one day hopefully getting my doctorate and doing research in bipolar as well. But the stigma needs to end, and we're going to fight it, and we're going to help people kind of realize what's going on in their life and get them help. So I'm actually going to be starting I used to have a podcast called The Masked Nurse. It was a mental health education podcast, and that kind of went into the wayside during COVID. But I will keep Cynthia up to date of my new podcast. I'm working on it right now. So anyway, so yes, anybody can live a great life. You are not defined by your disease or your disorder. So I appreciate being available to discuss this topic with you today, Cynthia. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely. And thank you for thank you for coming. You have really shared a wealth of knowledge. Congratulations on your endeavors, your efforts to advance your education in this field. We look forward to hearing more from you. We look forward to hearing more on the podcast. And yes, keep me updated so that I can keep our audience updated. Deborah says, thank you for your candor.
And my pleasure, Deborah.
Absolutely. I say the same thing. So in closing, I want to leave you with these final words after our enlightening. And I'll tell you, this has been truly enlightening. Again, for the third time, I cannot wait to go back and watch the replay. But thank you so much for this enlightening episode on bipolar disorder 1. And remember, you all, knowledge is power. And I say knowledge isn't power, though, unless we use the knowledge. And so by increasing our understanding of mental health conditions like bipolar disorder, we can begin to break down barriers and foster empathy and support for those who are affected. I mean, we can't think that people are just like the doctor, like you said, when the doctor came in and commented about the patient, being bipolar and don't pay them any attention or whatever. And I'm just adding some words to it. And you were like, for your information, so am I. So we have to break down these stigmas about it, and let's strive to create a world where individuals with bipolar disorder are met with compassion and understanding and access to the necessary resources and have access rather to the necessary resources for their well-being. And together we can challenge it. And Melissa and I are on a mission, just so y'all know. So you're gonna be hearing from the dynamic duo.
That's right. We're dear friends.
Exactly. We are challenging the stigma, we're promoting awareness, and we're building a more inclusive and supportive society. So thank you all for joining us on this important journey of education and empathy. And again, we want to express our heartfelt appreciation once more to Melissa Rusiti. Melissa, your presence this evening and your insights, your candor, as Deborah said, has been extremely helpful. And this has been How Well Are You, the talk show, where we are dedicated to erasing, a stronger word, eradicating the stigma surrounding mental illness. Yes, one episode at a time. I am Cynthia Mobley Howell, concluding for the time being. We'll see you same time, same place next week. But remember, in the meantime, in between time, keep smiling, stay positive, and take care of your minds. And as you already know, y'all that know me already know my mantra, and that is I am not keeping quiet
That's right.
anymore. I'm not keeping quiet anymore. Peace and blessings. See you next week.